lung expands, and then the air comes. The lung expands and then the air comes. But when the lung expands, there must be some volume that's causing it to expand, right? Or does it just expand?
No, it's supposed to expand.
Once entering the lung, what's volume? What's negative?
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, guys. How are you today? The last class for this week? MashaAllah. So we're finishing today and you're free to go, but this lecture is very important. So please do your best to be with me and to pay attention. We talk today about innervation for the thoracic organs. But before we will talk about visceral innervation, I will remind you, I will recall from scratch what are those principles of innervation in general we have, how somatic innervation is versus the autonomic innervation, what are those two types of autonomic, and how we provide sympathetic and parasympathetic to the thoracic organs. So, let's begin. That is the very first slide which confirms for us the topographical subdivision of nervous system into the central nervous system, CNS, and peripheral nervous system, PNS. So guys, just remind me, what are those two organs, only two organs, which belong to central nervous system? Perfect. So, absolutely correct. We have here the brain in the cavity of the skull, and we have the spinal cord in the vertebral canal, and only those two are CNS structures. Everything else, every single peripheral nerve we are talking about, every single ganglion we are talking about, they are structures of peripheral nervous system. So one more time to confirm, we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves, we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves, and guys, all those plus ganglia are structures of PNS. So how do we run spinal nerves? Pair of spinal nerves will start from the segment of spinal cord and run out through the intervertebral foramina. Yes? Yes. So that's about spinal nerves. And yes, we have 31 segments of spinal cord, so we have 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Now next, when we talk though about functional distribution of the nervous structures, we're supposed to mention that functionally we subdivide nervous system into somatic and autonomic. On my next coming diagram, I will confirm for you guys what does it mean soma, so what structures we do innervate with somatic and what structures we do innervate with autonomic. But before, let me remind you that the nervous cell is a neuron, and every neuron has similar kind of arrangement. We talk about cell body, like a usual cell with all those organelles and so on. And for the neurons, we have to talk about processes. So guys, tell me please, this central and longest process, how do we name it? Axon. And it runs information from cell, from the neural cell body, and then through the axon somewhere. What is the name of those peripheral processes? Dendrites. Very good. Based on number of those processes, we classify neurons into those three major groups. Guys, with the letter A, I marked for you pseudo-unipolar neurons. That means that from my cell body, I start just uni, one process, but in short way it splits into two. So it's not uni, it's actually pseudo-unipolar neuron. And guys, mark for yourself, please. Those pseudo-unipolar neurons, by function, they are sensory neurons. Very good. Now I am looking on that next kind of neuron, and I'm seeing that two processes starts from different poles of my cell, one axon, one dendrite, and that's my bipolar neuron. And guys, bipolar neurons are the most rare neurons in our body. We just have it in certain places like retina of the eye or like organ of hearing. Yes, absolutely correct. So they are very rare, they are not common. The most common though are these C-type of neurons with my picture. That's a multipolar neurons with one axon and couple of dendrites. So we talk today about our motor neurons, and so they are multipolar neurons. Now then, we start with this diagram to clarify that's nervous system subdivided into somatic and autonomic. Somatic will responsible to innervate the soma. Soma means body, means whatever I'm seeing outside, means skin and skeletal muscles. Autonomic though will innervate glands, will innervate smooth muscles, or technically I'm talking about internal organs, because my internal organs, they composed of glands and smooth muscles and specialized cells. Yes? Yes, very good. Now, in somatic nervous system, I will define two parts. I will define somatomotor and somatosensory. Guys, somatomotor from now on it will be in red in every diagram, and that means I will start my processes from motor neurons and I will reach with them skeletal muscles, and those processes I will name general somatoefferent. Efferent means descending. I will start from central nervous system and I will reach the skeletal muscle. Okay? Now sensory, somatosensory innervation. Guys, that is innervation for the skin. I will start this innervation from the skin receptors and I will run it through the sensory neuron. And guys, those fibers named general somatoefferent means from peripheral side back to the central nervous system, ascending. Now next part of my diagram confirms how it's happening. Well, that is my cell, that is my neuron. It's a multipolar neuron, motor neuron, which is sitting in ventral horn of the spinal cord. And the axon of this neuron, which is my general somatoefferent, GSAE, will reach the skeletal muscle. Now, that is my sensory part. I will start dendrite from receptors of the skin. I will run the impulse through the pseudounipolar sensory neuron in dorsal root ganglion, and then I will continue to run this impulse through the central nervous system. That's my GSA, general somatoefferent. Now guys, I want you to understand that all that sensory information which we are getting from the skin, and by the way from internal organs it will be working same way. All this information conduction depends on integrity of those pseudounipolar sensory neurons in dorsal root ganglia. Okay, now what I will do, I will combine my somatomotor and somatosensory into this next diagram. Well, what you see, that is a cross section through the spinal cord. Help me here please. What is the name of this butterfly shaped structure inside? That is my gray matter, and this gray matter means that it is composed of the bodies of the cells of my neurons, yes? And this gray matter I will subdivide into anterior horn or ventral horn, dorsal or posterior horn, and this lateral horn. And peripheral side I will have this white matter, which mostly represented with the processes. Yes, with the processes of my neurons. Then, next story. I'm seeing this structure from the ventral horn, and it is named ventral root. The structure behind is dorsal root, and this bump on the dorsal root is dorsal root ganglion, where I do have my pseudo-unipolar sensory neurons. Now, when two roots are coming together, that is my spinal nerve. And guys, you can see that spinal nerve, it's a very short structure. That is the one which exits in the vertebral canal through intervertebral foramen between adjacent vertebrae, right? And so now I can see that my spinal nerve splits into rami. On this specific diagram, I just marked two of them, which are respectively ventral primary ramus and dorsal primary ramus. And guys, if I'm watching my sensory and my motor pathways, kind of axons and dendrites of those neurons, well, I can say, well, both primary ramus, they compose both somatomotor and somatosensory. Motor for the muscles and sensory for overlying skin, yes? Very good. Now guys, I would like to demonstrate for you what is that spinal reflex, because technically on my slide here it's the simplest reflex arch. So imagine I'm touching something hot with my finger. Receptors of the skin convert that information of the heat into the impulse, yes? My impulse is running general somatoafferent through the dorsal root ganglion, spinal nerve, dorsal root ganglion to the central nervous system. In spinal cord, I conduct this information from that sensory to the motor, and through the motor axons, I keep running that impulse back to the group of the muscles through the general somatoafferent, and my muscles will contract and I will off my hand from that something hot. Guys, this spinal reflex, it's the easiest and fastest reflex, which requires only two neurons, one motor, one sensory. And you can ask me, well, after all, I will realize that that was sharp or hot. Yes, of course, when my impulse is getting to that posterior horn, it will be conducting through those white matter ascending pathways to my brain, to my respective sensory cortex, and I will analyze that impulse, but it needs time. That means if you're cutting your finger off something, first you will off your finger. In millisecond you will realize that, okay, it was sharp or it was hot, but it comes later. That realization comes later. Are you guys with me? Perfect. So, are we good with those structures? Yes, please.
This is for pain all around the body externally. For example, if I get a pain here.
Yes, I'm talking here about skin. I will confirm that later. Give me a moment, okay? So, because we are coming step by step, we are not missing everything together in one pot. For now, I described for you somatosensory innervation from the skin and somatomotor to the skeletal muscles. That's it for now. Okay, next. We come into the next part of the nervous system, functional part, which is autonomic nervous system. We just confirmed earlier, with autonomic I will innervate glands, smooth muscles, that means internal organs. And for that, I need two parts of autonomic, which are antagonistic parts. I am talking about sympathetic and parasympathetic. I will discuss them with you guys in details today, but first, what is similar for those? Guys, take a look on these schematics. That what's supposed to be in autonomic, in both sympathetic and parasympathetic, it has to be that way. We need two neurons to be able to innervate internal organ with autonomic. We need first neuron with location in central nervous system. We need second neuron in location in ganglion. And whatever we have before ganglion, we named with the term preganglionic. So actually, my neuron number 1 in central nervous system would be named preganglionic neuron, and the axons would be named preganglionic fibers, either sympathetic or parasympathetic. Then after ganglion, I have postganglionic. So that's my second postganglionic neuron in ganglion. And whatever axons it sent to the organs, I name them postganglionic. Guys, that's a principal difference in between somatic and autonomic. In somatic, we just need one neuron for motor, one neuron for sensory, but in autonomic, we need two. Are you with me? Perfect. We are moving on, and now I'm coming to this more advanced diagram. And we know a lot already here, but we will add some details. So guys, don't worry, every single structure which is marked with a number in next 2 slides, you have, identification just to check. But now we will do only the diagram, so you will trust my words, right? Who does not, you can check. I'm okay with that. So then, one more time. You have no other options, right? Yes. Okay. So, we're looking on that cross section through the spinal cord. Help me please, guys. Number 2, what is that? Ventral horn. Number 3, dorsal horn. Number 1, lateral horn. Number 4, dorsal root. Number 6, ventral root. Number 5, dorsal root ganglion. Number 19, spinal nerve, very good. Number 15, dorsal primary ramus. Number 14, ventral primary ramus. Perfect. Now, those in red are my motor neurons in ventral horn and how they run to reach to the skeletal muscle. Yes? Very good. Those dark blue are my general afferent from skin, guys, from skin through the dorsal root and down to the spinal cord. Yes? Yes. Now something new here I'm talking about, and that is the lateral horn. Guys, lateral horn is formed by sympathetic neurons. They collect themselves to that nucleus, what we named IML. IML means intermedial lateral. Intermedial because it sits in between 2 major horns, and lateral because it shifts to the lateral side. So IML, intermedial lateral. And that's my neuron number 1. That is my sympathetic preganglionic. All sympathetic innervation starts from that place, from IML. Now, axons. They run through the ventral root. Can you see that? And how do I name them if they start from my preganglionic neuron? They are preganglionic because I have to reach ganglion, yes, with them. So guys, one more time, preganglionic sympathetic. I run through the ventral root, I run through the spinal nerve, and then I deviate them from spinal nerve to get to the ganglion, to synapt, to conduct. Guys, that is a ganglion, number 11 marked, which belongs to sympathetic trunk. And that's where my conduction synaptin process is happening. So after I synapt on those postganglionic neurons, my postganglionic dash line is coming to this organ, internal organ to innervate. Everybody is okay with that? Perfect. Next detail. Guys, this deviation, this way of my preganglionic sympathetic from spinal cord and to the ganglion, marked with a 10, I named white communicant ramus. That is another ramus of the spinal nerve. Before we mentioned just primary rami, ventral and dorsal. Here we have white communicant ramus. Then, after conduction, some portion of the postganglionic sympathetic, they come back to my spinal nerve from the ganglion, And guys, they form this gray communicant ramus. Number 9 is a gray communicant ramus. And guys, watch this dash line. It runs through the spinal nerve and then through my primary rami. Question: what for I need sympathetic in my primary rami? We just mentioned primary rami, they have motor for skeletal muscles and sensory for the skin. What for I need sympathetic? Absolutely correct. In skin, I have that group of glands, sweat glands, which require sympathetic. It's the only group of glands which requires sympathetic. Every other gland in digestive system, respiratory system, urinary system will need parasympathetic to secrete. But specifically sweat glands, they need my sympathetic. Very good. And one more story. When you guys are in stress or when you are watching the horror movie, so sometimes you have these goosebumps on your skin. And what does it mean? That means that sympathetic innervates there the smooth muscles of hair follicles. And like your hair elevated. And that gives you like those goosebumps on the skin. So that's for we need postganglionic sympathetic running back to the spinal nerve and through primary rami to the skin. Everybody okay with that? Good. Another story. Look at this internal organ, guys. Marked 13. Does not matter which organ is there. We just mentioned that pain, it's all about sensory, agree? It's sensory innervation. So from skin, that means somatosensory. But I also might have pain coming from internal organ, and I will name that pain visceral sensory. Are you guys with me? What is the difference between somatic pain and visceral pain? Guys, you cut your finger, what kind of pain you have? You have somatic, which is sharp, which is burning, which is localized pain. With your closed eyes and hand turned out, you can specify the point of your pain, yes? So again, somatic pain is sharp, burning, and localized. What about visceral pain? Visceral pain is dull and unlocalized. Guys, the person with pneumonia having pain from the chest will show you just the side of the chest. He will not specify, oh doctor, my pain is coming from the middle lobe lateral segment, okay? So he will not be able to point the pain. So that means it is unlocalized. I hope it makes sense. And now guys, we are looking on those pain fibers, sensory, visceral fibers coming from internal organ. They are here in light blue. One more time, that's my general visceral afferent. They travel together with sympathetic through the spinal nerve, through the white communicant ramus, and guys, they initiated still in dorsal root ganglion. So another very important point here. Where to start all sensory innervation? From dorsal root ganglion. Dorsal root ganglion in each level responsible for some skin innervation, somatic innervation, and for some visceral innervation from internal organ. Are you guys with me? Now, the mechanism of referred pain I can discuss with you based on this concept. You guys remember when the patient is having myocardial infarction? Yes, the pain is coming from heart. That pain depends on my light blue, my visceral afferent. But while this pain is getting to the dorsal root ganglion, all pseudounipolar sensory units are there. Those which responsible for skin and those which responsible for heart. Okay? And they get confused. They don't know where pain is coming from. And so to your patient, it seems to the problem is coming from the skin of axillary fossa or middle arm, from the same like T1, T2 dermatomes. That's the mechanism of referred pain. When skin is fine, but due to the problem with internal organ and due to the crisscross on dorsal root ganglion, it seems to us that pain is coming from skin. Yes, question please.
You said all what is from the dorsal root ganglion?
All sensory. Okay? All sensory innervation, there is no other place to start but dorsal root ganglion, with exception of the region of the head. When we talk about head, our cranial nerves, they do have their own sensory ganglia, which belongs to cranial nerve. But everything from neck and down, all sensory begins from dorsal root ganglia. Yes, other question?
So the general visceral afferent, when they cross the dorsal ganglion, in the dorsal ganglion, they form their own neuron cells. Like they form their own cell bodies.
Yes, like we are, like without detailing here how it's happening, I'm just telling you that those cells, they get confused and they accept that pain impulse, like coming not only from internal organ but also from the same level dermatome, from skin. Does it make sense?
But like the cell bodies, they're for the general visceral afferent, they have their own cell bodies other than the general.
Yes, but that interconnection is happening there in dorsal root ganglion. Yes, next question.
You said there's confusion in the dorsal root ganglion only when there's an issue with the visceral affair. Why isn't it the same case when there's an issue with the somatic? Like, why don't you feel pain in the heart if you have an issue with your skin?
It's not happening other way around. It's always from internal organ to the skin. Because if it is a somatic problem, it is like, remember, sharp burning localized. We can see it in the skin. Okay? If something like is coming, like if you feel internal organ pain, usually it's not related to that specific problem. Yes, next.
In the heart, there aren't any sensory neurons, right?
Of course, pericardium, okay, the difference between visceral sensory and somatosensory, that visceral sensory, it picks up that pain coming from stretch, from edema, from tension. It's like, okay, with myocardial infarction, I'm picking up actually that pain coming from pericardium of the heart, with the stretch of that pericardium. The same like in the region of the head. Guys, you will learn your neuroscience later, and they will ask you, okay, where headache is initiated? All of us, we do have headaches sometimes, yes? It's not about brain. Brain tissue has no pain receptors whatsoever. My central nervous system, you can slice my brain, I feel nothing. Okay? So that pain is coming from the cover, from dura mater, which is stretching and give me the feeling of headache, the pain. Make sense? Make sense. Okay, guys, are we done with this diagram? Kind of. Now let me practice with you. Yes.
When, as you said, like a person has myocardial infarction and there's going to be pain in the heart, they're going to feel that pain, no?
Of course.
So that's going to be from the visceral sensory neuron.
Yes.
And they're going to feel it in the heart and in the arm.
Yes, sometimes.
This visceral sensory neuron, is it part of the vagus nerve or not?
No, guys. Sympathetic and parasympathetic has nothing to do with pain. Pain depends only on sensory pseudounipolar neurons. That's your goal. It is though sometimes we are talking about sympathetic because they run together. They run together here in white communicant. They run together here to get to the organ. But guys, this purple dash line here, which is sympathetic, it's my postganglionic sympathetic. It's my general visceral efferent. Efferent because it gets some motion to the organ. But pain always depends from this one, which is general visceral afferent. Okay, those which are asking about sympathetic, they just simplify the picture. They don't care about like common rule, common sense. They just telling you, okay, they just running together. Give me a moment. I will finish this presentation. I will clarify with next slides everything for that. Okay? So we are moving on. Guys, it's just the structures labeled. That is your first question. A patient presents with a loss of sensation on the skin over the shoulder. Injury to which of following nerve cells would most likely affect the conduction of sensory information to the central nervous system? Absolutely correct. You pick up the correct answer. They are pseudo-unipolar sensory neurons. Where they are? In dorsal root ganglion. Very good. Moving on.
Doctor, will you do number 8 and 7?
I'm sorry?
Number 8 and 7 on the diagram.
Number 8 and 7 on the diagram.
Will you do them?
Oh, guys, don't worry about these number 8 and 7. That's just the fifth smallest branch of the spinal nerve. We named it meningeal branch, and it's actually the topic of neuroscience. Okay, so when you will start innervating coverings of the brain and spinal cord. Okay, so you can neglect that last one for now. Just be confident about those four: dorsal and ventral primary rami, white communicant, and gray communicant. By the way, guys, when we talk about this white communicant, one more time, what we run through the white communicant? We run preganglionic sympathetic, and we run visceral afferent, means sensory from internal organ. Yes? What we run through the gray communicant? Postganglionic sympathetic. Very good. And now you can understand why it is like that. So white versus gray. Running together with the sensory gives me that white color. Myelinated structures are my sensory fibers. Gray is not myelinated. We named it gray, obviously. Okay, guys? Let's move on. Now, we talk more details about autonomic innervation. We already know that autonomic innervates gland smooth muscles, and we know that we subdivide it into sympathetic and parasympathetic. That is the effect of sympathetic being predominant. That's our fight or flight response. Yes, I'm always teaching you guys to be confident about effects of sympathetic, that system of stress. Imagine yourself running from the wild animal, like running from the tiger. Whatever is happening with you during that run, that's the effects of sympathetic. So tell me, what is happening with your heart? Heart will increase the number of contractions and the force of contractions, yes? What's happening with your respiratory? You're like a dog, right? So you increase the number of respirations. What is happening with your pupils? Your pupils are dilated, absolutely correct. And it makes sense for me because I want to run and hide in some darkness. And within the dark, yes, my pupils are dilated, sympathetic predominant, my pupils are dilated. Then what is happening with my internal system, like digestive and urinary? Guys, those smooth muscles, circular muscles, what I named sphincters, they are constricted, and I will make sure that I not leave anything behind, because I will be found and I will be eaten if my sphincters will relax. Yes? Yes, so sympathetic keeps my sphincters closed. Yes?
So it's not possible to vomit when you have sympathetic.
We come to that point, okay? So please keep that question for the end, okay? Then Another story. You guys sitting in stress in anatomy exam. What's happening with your fingers? Sweaty and cold, right? So peripheral vessels, they constrict with sympathetic innervation. So keep that in mind as well. Now, guys, before I will discuss with you this description, I want to show you my diagram. So, help me please. What is here in my diagram? It's not a worm, it's brain and spinal cord, right? So that is brain, that is spinal cord. So central nervous system I marked for you guys. And I do remember that my sympathetic innervation starts from where? It starts from lateral horn in spinal cord from IML, yes? And now, yes, you're absolutely correct. That's an important story. That this lateral horn is not found in entire spinal cord segments, not from first cervical to last, which is coccygeal, right? So I have this sympathetic center in certain level from T1 through all the thoracic segments and then to lumbar upper segments. So from T1 to L2. And this, guys, this purple line, it identifies for us that IML running in lateral horn. So the idea is, if I cut through the spinal cord, through the cervical region, through the cervical segment, what I will see on picture? I will see anterior horn, I will see posterior horn, but no lateral. Are you guys with me? So same story is happening if I cut below L2 segment. I have ventral and dorsal horns, but no lateral. So this lateral horn, it's a place for my neuron number 1, which is preganglionic neuron. Now the axons, those I named preganglionic sympathetic. Do you guys remember how they run? They need to reach the ganglion. So how do they run? They run anterior root, spinal nerve, white communicant ramus to get to the ganglion. So guys, those dots connected in one line, that's my sympathetic trunk. So here I am demonstrating for you conduction process to those postganglionic neurons in sympathetic trunk. And from postganglionic neurons, I run postganglionic sympathetic to innervate thoracic organs. Now guys, tell me please, which segments of spinal cord I use to innervate everything in thorax? Absolutely correct. It's just from T1 to T4. Beginning from T5, I will innervate with sympathetic abdominal organs, and I am not discussing that with you right now. But having your GI block, GIT block, and having your like endoreproductive block, come back to this diagram for sympathetic innervation, okay? And I will be happy to help. Okay then, what have we learned here? Guys, I want you to remember, I request from you here, from this diagram, to memorize that special name for those dashed lines, which are my postganglionic sympathetic. In thorax, I name them thoracic splanchnic nerves. Guys, splanchnos, that is the same term as the viscera, it's synonymous, but coming from the Greek terminology. So, thoracic splanchnic nerves, that's the name of those which innervate the thoracic organs. Now, let's practice a little bit. I'm saying, well, my patient has troubles, has damage to the preganglionic sympathetic neurons which innervate thorax. Which structure is damaged? Absolutely correct. If it is preganglionic neurons I'm asking about, I'm talking about IML lateral horn. Are you guys with me? Good. Now next question. My patient has damage to white communicant rami in thorax. Which type of fibers are in troubles?
Preganglionic sympathetic.
Preganglionic sympathetic are in troubles, and
And sensory general.
visceral sensory in troubles. Very good. VGVA. Very good. Now next question. My patient, due to multiple penetrating wounds and lesions, has troubles with thoracic splanchnic nerves. Which fibers are they made up of? Postganglionic sympathetic. Are you guys okay? And you know, hundreds of modifications I can do, but if you know, you know, and you will answer. Good. Moving just for a moment for this slide. Excuse me. It is pretty much about saying, but now in words. Okay. We start sympathetic innervation for thorax from preganglionic neurons, which are located in IML, in spinal cord lateral horn, in the level of T1 to T4. My preganglionic sympathetic, I run to synapt to the sympathetic trunk ganglion, same level, T1 to T4. My postganglionic sympathetic, they run to organs and they form thoracic splanchnic nerves. Bless you. Good job. We're moving on. Parasympathetic innervation. Guys, it's quite opposite to sympathetic. It's what actually we used to feel after a nice dinner without any troubles, getting sleepy, because that is a system of relaxation. So what's happening with our heart rate? Decelerate. What is happening with our respiratory rate? Decrease. What is happening with our smooth muscles of digestive system? They start working because now my digestion is happening, and I'm talking about peristalsis. Guys, parasympathetic innervates smooth muscles of GI tract and all those glands we needed for digestion. And of course, the main nerve we do remember for parasympathetic, which is vagus nerve, which is a cranial nerve number 10. Not that vagus where you're gambling, yes? That is a cranial nerve number 10 I'm talking about. And so for now, guys, with my next easy diagram, I will show you how this parasympathetic is happening. By the way, what is to keep in mind? What will be that structure of parasympathetic innervation? Same as sympathetic, as on my diagram. First neuron, preganglionic, then preganglionic fibers, then second neuron in ganglion, then postganglionic fibers. Yes? Yes, very good. Now, first the diagram, next wording. So guys, on this diagram, I locate for you here that parasympathetic nucleus of vagus. We named it dorsal motor nucleus of vagus. Guys, it is located in medulla oblongata in brain. And that's my preganglionic parasympathetic neurons. Those are preganglionic parasympathetic. Then I start vagus from them. So that's my preganglionic parasympathetic fibers. And guys, remind me please, how vagus runs through the thorax? It runs through the neck first, yes, of course, but then in thorax. Superior mediastinum first, then posterior mediastinum, getting closer to the esophagus, behind roots of the lung, then close to esophagus, with the esophagus through the diaphragm to the abdomen, yes? In the level of T10, we have that as a phageal opening of diaphragm. Very good. And in abdomen, vagus will keep innervating with parasympathetic most of abdominal organs. Now, remember our structure? Those preganglionic of vagus, they have to reach the ganglia to synapt. Where are my ganglia? Very good. For all parasympathetic, it works so easy. We always have those ganglia inside the organs, and we name them all terminal ganglia, because I'm about to terminate my innervation. I'm already getting to my destination. Does it make sense, guys? So very good. Take a look. I synapse on my terminal ganglia here inside the organs, and very, very small postganglionic will provide parasympathetic innervation. And yes, all those effects we mentioned will happen. Decreasing of the heart rate, decreasing of respiration rate, and so on. Now guys, you can see here another important concept. Sympathetic versus parasympathetic in pre and postganglionic. In sympathetic, preganglionic is shorter than postganglionic. In parasympathetic, preganglionic is so dramatically long to the terminal ganglion than very, very short postganglionic. Are you guys with me? Perfect. Now, look at this diagram. And guys, that's what you will deal with in GIT. You will continue to discuss vagus for upper and middle GI organs to innervate, but for the terminal part of the gut tube, for hindgut, and for all pelvic organs in pelvis, you will not use vagus anymore for parasympathetic. You will use sacral parasympathetic nucleus, S2, S3, S4. Guys, again, it's not important now. All thoracic organs receive parasympathetic from vagus, but later on, please come back to the diagram. Okay? Good. And now we are just wording again. So, preganglionic parasympathetic are in medulla, in dorsal motor nucleus of vagus. Preganglionic fibers I run through the vagus nerve till the terminal ganglia inside of the organs. Postganglionic, they are very short, microscopic to innervate. Are you guys okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Question for you. Based on the examination at your doctor's office, the patient is told that her parasympathetic nerves are damaged. Which of following muscles would most likely be affected? Everybody agrees with option D?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you guys. Let's confirm. Muscles of hair follicles, what they require? Sympathetic. You remember goosebumps, right? Good. Muscles of blood vessels, they require sympathetic. Guys, with exception of those coronary arteries, because when heart starts racing with the scary, with sympathetic being predominant, we need more blood to the heart. So coronary arteries, they just have different receptors, and with sympathetic we dilate them, not constrict. I hope it makes sense. Yes?
How about the muscles going to the brain?
It's pretty much same kind of concept, but with the brain it's not obvious. So just leave it for the brain vessels physiology, okay? Okay, good.
Also like the skeletal muscles, right?
Yes, skeletal muscle. It's not about sympathetic or parasympathetic. It's about somato-motor innervation, that red from anterior ventral horn of spinal cord, right? And the same story is about option E, muscles enclosed by epimysium. Guys, epimysium, perimysium, endomysium, it's like connective tissue for skeletal muscle, exactly. So same story, we need somatic innervation for that. So muscles of the gastrointestinal tract, they are our smooth muscles which will contribute to that peristaltic movements, and that's what we need for digestion, which is happening when parasympathetic is predominant. Yes?
Doctor, what about cranial nerves 3, 7, and 9?
Very good question. Guys, when we compare sympathetic and parasympathetic. For sympathetic, we have just one center, means all our preganglionic neurons, all sympathetic, we begin from that IML in lateral horn. Yes? And depends on level, we do in different organs. Now, for parasympathetic though, we have two centers. We have cranial center, we have caudal center. Guys, that cranial center now has only that dorsal motor nucleus of vagus, but you will learn in the second year that cranial nerve number 3, oculomotor, cranial nerve number 7, facial, cranial nerve number 9, glossopharyngeal, and vagus, 4 of them, they do have parasympathetic centers in brain. So from those, we actually innervate region of the head and vagus up to the terminal abdominal. So for pelvis and for hindgut, as I mentioned, we are using this sacral center. So, but you know, like I did not mark those other cranial nerves for purpose. It's not our objective for right now. But thank you for asking, they are there. Okay guys, are we good?
Yes.
Perfect. And let me just, confirm with you. With these thoracic organs, we talk about blood supply. We identify 2 major arteries. One artery close to anterior chest wall, and that would be internal thoracic, to give us anterior intercostals. Then other artery close to the vertebral column, descending thoracic aorta, to give us posterior intercostal. We talk about internal organs innervation. Each internal organ has 3: sympathetic, parasympathetic, sensory. Parasympathetic from the dorsal motor nucleus of vagus, cranial nerve number 10, through the terminal ganglia. Sympathetic from IML T1 to T4 lateral horn through the sympathetic trunk ganglia. And don't forget that thoracic splanchnic nerves, that's a special name of postganglionic sympathetic. Guys, third type, sensory innervation for internal organs in thorax. Where to start? Dorsal root ganglion, that's your gold answer, yes. Sensory is always from dorsal root ganglion. And we talk about level, again, T1 to T4, because sensory is coming together with sympathetic, so we are talking about same level to start. And finally, referred pain, we already mentioned that mechanism of referring the pain from internal organ to the skin. Any questions? Thank you very much for your attention. We're done for today. Thank you guys. I hope it clarifies a lot.
But this is unrelated, it is a lecture, kind of. So it's in the journal form. I was speaking to one of another academic. He told me if you have pain in a different place in the stomach, it identifies specifically to the stomach. How could we know the specific area in the stomach? Because it's like subtractive to 9.
The gallbladder is internal organ, right? And it has that visceral downstream from but when gallbladder touching the wall and inflammation like spreads from internal organ to the wall it's about soma. Wall is somatic innervation. When it comes to the wall, the pain becomes localized and sharp. Remember we talked about pleuras, we talked about thorax, coming back to thorax. The problem comes from lung, yes? And while the problem is just about lung and the visceral pleura, the pain is visceral pain. It is dull and unmovable. But when this inflammatory process spreads and parietal pleura gets involved, parietal pleura, remember costal pleura, receives innervation from the costal nerve, which is my somatic nerve. So from that moment, this process will affect my parietal pleura. The pain becomes sharp and localized, and then he can go in. Make sense? Perfect.
Doctor, I want to clarify that in the heart, you don't have pain sensory neurons. So you don't have VGD, general visceral afferents. Do you have one? You don't have one. A general visceral afferent. You have one.
In the cardio
Vital or visceral afferent?
visceral as well. Remember that so technically it's part of the whole. So that is why we tell you yes, technically heart is having receptors. But we are not talking about
The pain receptors that are the same as the somatic. Yes. And those are the same nerves that pick up the pain, pick up a stretch, and they transfer it into the
and you know like right now I just talked about how this visceral pain becomes somatic.
Yes, because once the somatic pain gets involved,
What structures are the structures? Because somatic one of those
Tonight.